The chamber was built for efficiency, not cruelty. That distinction mattered to the Varelians. It was circular, seamless, without corners where shadows could gather or hope could hide. The walls emitted a soft, neutral light calibrated to prevent sleep. Gravity was slightly reduced, enough to keep muscles under constant correction, enough to exhaust without strain. The air tasted clean, sterile, and wrong. The human sat at the center. His name had already been catalogued, translated, and stripped of context. To the Dominion, he was a specimen designation followed by a rank that carried no weight beyond Earth. His uniform had been removed with care, catalogued thread by thread, then discarded. What remained was a man bound by translucent restraints that adjusted to his pulse. High Inquisitor Vrax Coughlin observed from behind a crystalline partition, 6 hands folded with ceremonial precision. His kind prized order. Pain was not art. Pain was data. Begin Phase 3, Vrax said. The voice translator rendered it smoothly, without inflection. A field shimmered around the human skull. It did not burn. It did not cut. It pressed. Memories surfaced involuntarily, dragged to the edge of awareness and held there, unresolved. Training exercises. A sibling's laugh. The smell of rain on concrete. None of it was useful. The human breathed through his nose. Slow. Controlled. Vrax tilted his elongated head. Fascinating. Neural resistance patterns remain intact. A subordinate adjusted the field. He understands the questions, Inquisitor. He refuses to contextualize. Vrax stepped forward, his reflection rippling across the partition. Then ask again. Simply. The partition dissolved. Vrax entered the chamber. His presence altered the air, not physically, but socially. Authority had weight. Human, Vrax said, standing close enough for the restraints to hum in response. You are not important. Your species is tolerated, not respected. Your silence serves no strategic purpose. The human opened one eye. It was swollen, the lid darkened with internal bleeding, but the focus was sharp. I've given you my name, he said hoarsely. My unit. My serial. That's all you get. Vrax's mandibles flexed. You misunderstand your position. No, the human replied. You misunderstand mine. Vrax did not react immediately. He recorded the exchange, tagged it for later behavioral review. Escalate cognitive pressure, he instructed. The field intensified. This time it pulled at fear, not memory. The primal kind. Falling. Drowning. Isolation so complete it erased sound. The human's jaw tightened. A breath shuddered, then steadied. Minutes passed. Then more. The human did not scream. Vrax felt something close to irritation. Humans were biologically unimpressive. Fragile frames, inefficient sensory ranges, unstable emotions. They were expected to fracture quickly. This one did not. Why endure? Vrax asked, genuinely curious. You are not trained for this. The human exhaled. You'd be surprised what we train for. Silence followed. Vrax turned away, signaling the end of the session. Return him to suspension. Resume in 6 cycles. As the restraints lifted him into stasis, the human's consciousness slipped, not into mercy, but into enforced waiting. Far away, beneath kilometers of reinforced rock and ocean, Commander Elias Ward watched the final seconds of the feed without moving. The room around him was dark by design. No insignia. No flags. Just a table, a wall of inactive screens, and a single active display frozen on the human's face before the cut. Ward did not curse. He did not raise his voice. He rewound the clip once. Then again. They use Phase 3, said the intelligence officer beside him. That's prohibited. Ward nodded. Only if acknowledged. Diplomatic channels had been open for 14 days. Requests for access were delayed, redirected, politely buried. The Galactic Concord had responded with concern and nothing else. No formal charges. No inspections. No accountability. They're testing boundaries, the officer continued. Seeing how much they can take before we fold. Ward leaned back, folding his hands the way he always did when thinking. They already crossed it. A technician hesitated. Sir, officially we can't prove. I know, Ward said quietly. That's why this doesn't go through official channels. He stood and walked to a secured terminal recessed into the wall. It required no password, only biometric confirmation and intent verification. Ward placed his palm against the surface. A prompt appeared. Authorization level final. Once this is done, the officer said, there's no record. There never is, Ward replied. He selected a protocol buried beneath layers of classification so deep it predated the Concorde itself. The screen displayed a single line. Protocol Ghost, conditional activation. Ward confirmed. Across the facility, systems updated silently. Orders routed through paths that erased themselves after delivery. One name surfaced briefly, then vanished. The officer swallowed. Do we notify diplomatic command? Ward shook his head. No. Let them keep talking. He looked once more at the frozen image of the man in the chamber. Blood dried at the corner of his mouth, eyes still defiant. They wanted to know what kind of species we are, Ward said. Now they'll learn. The screen went dark. Protocol Ghost did not appear on any active network. It existed as a contingency embedded in dead systems, buried beneath obsolete doctrines and treaties that no longer mattered. It was never briefed to politicians. It was never acknowledged by the Concorde. Even within Earth's military structure, only a handful of commanders knew it was real, and fewer still had authority to touch it. Elias Ward was one of them. He stood alone in the briefing chamber, as the walls sealed behind him. The room was smaller than the one outside, deliberately isolating. No screens activated automatically. No artificial intelligence prompted him. Ghost protocols required intent, not convenience. A single console lit when Ward spoke. Confirm isolation. Confirmed, replied a neutral voice stripped of origin. No external logging active. Ward nodded. Bring up operative file. The air in front of him shimmered. Not an image. A silhouette rendered in negative space, shaped by absence rather than presence. No name appeared. No rank. Just a designation. Spectre. Ward exhaled slowly. He had hoped, irrationally, that the file would remain empty. That hope had died the moment he watched the interrogation feed. Status? Ward asked. Operational, the system replied. Unavailable for standard assignment. Psychological deviation outside acceptable parameters for conventional units. That hasn't changed, Ward said. No. The silhouette shifted, resolving into a figure standing at ease. The face remained indistinct, features blurred by deliberate distortion. Spectre's records were incomplete by design. Birthplace redacted. Service history fragmented. Every mission tied to them ended with anomalies. Conflicts resolved without explanation, threats neutralized without attribution. Spectre was not a soldier. Soldiers fought wars that could be named. Spectre ended problems that could not. Ward leaned forward. You've seen the footage? Yes. Assessment? Dominion interrogation doctrine relies on hierarchical dominance, Spectre said. The voice was calm, almost disinterested. They believe suffering is cumulative. They misunderstand endurance. Ward studied the silhouette. They're escalating. They will, Spectre replied. Their objective is not intelligence alone. It's precedent. Ward's jaw tightened. That won't stand. No, Spectre agreed. It won't. Silence settled, heavy but controlled. Ward broke it. This is a retrieval, he said. And a message. Spectre tilted their heads slightly. Define parameters. No collateral visibility. No confirmable attribution. Facility must fail internally. And personnel? Ward hesitated for a fraction of a second. Minimum necessary. Understood. Ward straightened. You'll have no support once you cross into Dominion space. I never do. Extraction window will be narrow. I won't need it. Ward studied the figure again, searching for something human beneath the erasure. He found none. That frightened him more than he admitted. Why accept this? Ward asked quietly. You don't owe us anything. Spectre did not respond immediately. When they did, the answer was simple. They took one of ours. That was enough. The silhouette dissolved. The system returned to silence. Hours later, far above Earth's atmosphere, an unregistered object detached from a civilian transport vessel and drifted briefly before accelerating on a vector that avoided all recognized trade lanes. It emitted no active signals. Its mass profile mimicked debris. Its hull absorbed sensor queries instead of reflecting them. Inside, Spectre prepared in silence. The ship's interior was utilitarian to the point of austerity. No insignia. No personal effects. Just equipment arranged with obsessive precision. Spectre moved through the space methodically, checking systems that would never fail and redundancies that would never be used. A holographic projection bloomed above the central console, the Kepri 9 orbital facility. A lattice of corridors wrapped around a rotating core, surrounded by defense arrays calibrated for intercepting fleets, not individuals. Spectre examined it without emotion. They built it to intimidate. Spectre murmured to no one. Not to defend. The ship's systems responded silently, adjusting parameters based on Spectre's analysis. Algorithms refined entry points. Security layers were mapped and deprioritized. Varelian doctrine favored visible deterrence. Overlapping patrols. Predictable response trees. Spectre exploited predictability like a fault line. Midway through the transit, a secure channel opened. Ward's voice emerged, low and controlled. You're approaching the boundary. Confirmed. Diplomatic channels remain active, Ward said. They think we're still negotiating. Spectre allowed a brief, humorless smile. They will continue to think that. Ward paused. There's no abort clause. There never is. Another pause. Bring him home. The channel closed. As the ship slipped past Dominion sensor nets, a faint ripple passed through the Concorde's surveillance grid. A delay measured in milliseconds. A packet rerouted. A log overwritten. No alarm triggered. Inside the Kepri 9 facility, High Inquisitor Vrax Calthuin reviewed reports with mild dissatisfaction. The human remains uncooperative, an aide reported. Physiological degradation within acceptable limits. Vrax flicked a claw dismissively. Increase isolation intervals. He will fracture. Yes, Inquisitor. Vrax turned toward the viewport, gazing at the gas giant below. Earth's diplomats had sent another message. Carefully worded. Polite. Predictable. They are stalling, Vrax said aloud. They always do. He did not see the brief flicker in the station's internal diagnostics. He did not hear the system clock adjust itself by a fraction of a second. Across the void, Spectre's ship aligned with the facility's shadow and matched rotation. The docking clamps engaged without registering as a docking event. Spectre rose from the pilot's seat. This ends quietly, they said, and stepped into the dark. The first door opened half a second late. That delay was imperceptible to the station's systems. It fell well within tolerance margins. To Spectre, it was confirmation. They moved through the maintenance corridor without sound, boots magnetized lightly to the floor. The air carried a faint metallic tang, filtered and recycled too many times. Lighting panels glowed at standard intensity, never flickering, never alerting. Kepri 9 was built to impress observers, not to hunt intruders who knew how to disappear. Spectre paused at an intersection and placed 2 fingers against the wall. The facility's nervous system hummed beneath the alloy. Power, data, life support, everything braided together for efficiency. Efficiency created dependencies. Dependencies created failure points. Spectre exhaled and slipped a wafer-thin device into a seam no one ever checked. Down the corridor, a camera rotated on its axis, completed its sweep, and returned to center. The recorded feed looped the previous 6 seconds. Nothing changed. No one noticed. In the detention wing, the human lay suspended in a restraint field that mimicked weightlessness. Bruises marked his ribs in deep violet blooms. His breathing was shallow but steady. His eyes fluttered, half aware, caught between consciousness and enforced drift. Spectre approached, lowering their voice. "I'm here." The man's eyelids trembled. "You're late," he whispered, the attempt at humor brittle. Spectre disabled the field in stages, careful not to shock damaged tissue. Gravity returned gently. They caught him as his legs failed. "Can you walk?" Spectre asked. "Give me a minute," the man said. "They were thorough." "They always are," Spectre replied. Elsewhere in the station, High Inquisitor Vrax Kelthlin paused mid-stride. A report had failed to arrive. It was a trivial thing. Data packets were delayed constantly across the Concord. Yet Vrax felt a tightening along his thorax plates. He gestured for an aide. "Confirmed detention wing telemetry." The aide's frills twitched. "Telemetry is stable, Inquisitor." "Then why is the biometric stream paused?" The aide hesitated, fingers moving across a console. "The stream shows no interruption." Vrax leaned closer. The data was pristine. Too pristine. "Bring up raw system time." The aide complied. The clock displayed a value off by a fraction of a second. Vrax's mandibles parted. "That is not acceptable." Back in the wing, Spectre secured the man into a compact harness and administered a stimulant measured precisely for his mass and condition. Color returned to his face in increments. "You're going to feel worse before you feel better," Spectre said. The man nodded. "Figures." They moved. Doors parted. Hallways cleared. Guards passed intersections seconds before Spectre crossed them, following patrol routes that no longer matched reality. The station's internal map had been nudged, subtly, repeatedly, until it no longer described itself accurately. Vrax reached the control sector and froze. 3 consoles displayed green across all parameters. One showed nothing at all. "Why is that terminal dark?" he demanded. The technician swallowed. "It shouldn't be." Vrax stepped forward and placed a claw against the inactive surface. The material felt warm. Alive. He felt, for the first time in decades, a prickle of uncertainty. "Lock down the facility," Vrax ordered. "Lockdown engaged," the system replied. Nothing changed. Spectre guided the man into a lift that should not have been accessible. As it descended, the man glanced at Spectre's blurred face. "They didn't break me," he said quietly. "I was worried they might." Spectre met his gaze. "They don't understand what breaking looks like." The lift opened into a service artery that bypassed primary security. Ahead, a figure stepped into view. Vrax Kelthlin stood alone, his posture rigid with controlled fury. The lights reflected off his crystalline eyes, sharp and calculating. "So," Vrax said, voice smooth. "The rumors were incomplete." Spectre stopped, placing themselves between Vrax and the wounded man. "You've exceeded your mandate." Vrax's mandibles flexed. "You have violated Dominion sovereignty." Spectre's tone remained even. "You violated a treaty. You tortured a uniformed soldier. You documented it." Vrax laughed softly. "And yet here you stand, without fleet or flag. A thief, not a diplomat." Spectre tilted their head. "We sent diplomats. You ignored them." Vrax's gaze flicked to the human. "This specimen has no strategic value worth the risk you've taken." "He does," Spectre replied. "To us." Vrax stepped closer. "You think this changes anything? Your species remains minor. Your influence limited." Spectre raised a hand. The lights dimmed by a precise margin. "Your long-range transmitters are offline. Your internal redundancies are cross-feeding corrupted data. Your backups are overwriting themselves." Vrax's composure cracked. "Impossible. Predictable," Spectre said. "You built this place to be seen, not to be tested." Vrax's voice dropped. If you kill me, the Concord will demand answers. Spectres shook their head. We're not here to kill you. A distant tremor ran through the station. Not violent. Systemic. Vrax's eyes widened as he understood. You're erasing us. The facility, Spectre corrected. Personnel losses will be attributed to containment failure. And me? Spectre met his gaze. You will understand why this happened. Another tremor. The station's rotation stuttered, then stabilized on auxiliary control. Alarms remained silent, their thresholds adjusted just out of reach. Spectre turned away, guiding the human toward an airlock that should have required 6 separate authorizations. Vrax called after them, his voice sharp with something like fear. Earth cannot hide forever. Spectre paused at the threshold. We're not hiding. The airlock cycled. Pressure equalized. Spectre's ship drifted into view, clamps already extended. As the hatch sealed behind them, Vrax stood alone in a control sector that no longer listened to him. Displays flickered, then steadied, reporting normal operations that no longer existed. Spectre secured the man into a crash couch and initiated launch. The ship disengaged, sliding free as if the station had released it willingly. Behind them, Kepri 9's internal systems began a quiet cascade toward failure. No alarms sounded. No warnings were sent. And for the first time, High Inquisitor Vrax Kelthun understood that Earth had never been asking permission. The Kepri 9 facility died politely. From the outside, nothing dramatic occurred. No explosion tore through its silhouette. No distress beacon flared across Concord space. The station continued to orbit the gas giant with dignified precision, while its internal systems began to contradict one another. High Inquisitor Vrax Kelthun stood in the control sector, surrounded by consoles insisting everything was fine. Report, he demanded. A technician's frills quivered. Primary containment stable. Power stable. Life support. The aide hesitated. Life support is stable. Vrax turned slowly. You said that twice? The aide swallowed. Yes, Inquisitor. A subtle vibration ran through the deck. Not violent. Not alarming. The kind of tremor caused by systems compensating for absences they could not identify. Vrax moved to the central console and forced a manual override. The interface resisted, then complied with a delay that made his mandibles tighten. He accessed raw diagnostics. They did not match. Subsystems reported data that aligned internally yet conflicted with physical reality. Temperature readings stabilized while condensation formed on bulkheads. Power flow registered optimal while sections dimmed. Redundancy layers cross-checked themselves into circular confirmation. Who authorized a recursive verification loop? Vrax demanded. No one, the aide whispered. It's self-propagating. Vrax's mind raced. This was not sabotage as the Dominion understood it. No single failure. No obvious attack vector. The station was obeying itself into paralysis. Open external channels, Vrax ordered. The technician complied. Static answered. Then silence. Vrax felt something cold settle beneath his thoracic plates. He had interrogated hundreds of species. He had catalogued fear responses meticulously. This sensation did not match any profile he knew. He was not afraid of death. He was afraid of comprehension. Another tremor. This one stronger. Gravity fluctuated by a fraction. Enough to be felt. Not enough to trigger alarms. Auxiliary control? Vrax asked. Non-responsive, the aide said. It insists it is online. Vrax stared at the console. Lies, he said softly. Across the void, Spectre's ship burned silent arcs through empty space, its drive signature masked within the gas giant's radiation. Inside, the rescued soldier lay strapped into a medical cradle, eyes closed, breath even. Spectre adjusted a monitor, watching vitals stabilize. The man stirred. Did we make it? He asked, voice rough. Yes, Spectre replied. The man managed a weak smile. Figures it'd end quietly. Spectre said nothing. Minutes later, the Kepri 9 facility reached a threshold it could not resolve. Cooling systems compensated for heat that no longer existed. Power rerouted endlessly, bleeding efficiency with every loop. Structural supports adjusted for stresses that never arrived, weakening themselves in the process. In the control sector, a console sparked and died. The aide recoiled. Inquisitor. Vrax raised a claw. Enough. He straightened, smoothing the ceremonial folds of his attire. Around him, the station groaned like a living thing exhausted by obedience. This was never about intelligence, Vrax said aloud, more to himself than anyone else. They did not come to argue. Understanding settled with brutal clarity. Earth had documented everything. The delays. The politeness. The unanswered messages. They were not appeals. They were distractions. Vrax moved toward the viewport. The gas giant loomed, vast and indifferent. He had believed humanity minor because it negotiated. Because it sought consensus. Because it waited. The station shuddered again. This time, alarms chirped briefly, then fell silent as thresholds recalibrated themselves out of existence. They chose restraint, Vrax whispered. Until they didn't. Life support failed 3 seconds later. Not catastrophically. Selectively. Oxygen levels dipped just enough to steal clarity, to blur edges. Vrax staggered, one claw braced against the viewport. No emergency seals deployed. No alerts broadcast. The station's systems recorded the event as nominal variance. As darkness crept into his vision, Vrax understood the final lesson: Earth did not need witnesses. Earth needed memory. The Kepri 9 facility continued its orbit for another 12 minutes before structural harmonics drifted beyond correction. Sections collapsed inward. Pressure differentials resolved themselves violently, and then not at all. From Concord space, it appeared as a containment failure. Tragic. Unfortunate. Unremarkable. The incident report was filed automatically. No responsible party identified. On Earth, dawn broke over a recovery ward buried beneath reinforced stone. The soldier woke to white light and the quiet hum of machines. His body ached in unfamiliar ways, pain softened by medication and distance. Commander Elias Ward stood at the foot of the bed, hands folded behind his back. "You're home," Ward said. The man blinked, focusing. "I figured," he murmured. "Smells like antiseptic and bad coffee." Ward allowed a faint smile. "You'll recover." "Did we escalate things?" the man asked. Ward met his gaze evenly. "No." The man studied Ward's face, reading what wasn't said. He nodded. "Good." Ward turned as the door opened silently. Spectre stood in the doorway, already half a shadow. "Mission concluded," Spectre said. Ward inclined his head. "Any complications?" "None that persist." Ward paused. "Thank you." Spectre did not respond. They turned and walked away, steps already fading into absence. Hours later, Ward stood alone in the command chamber, watching a star map update. The Kepri 9 marker dimmed, then disappeared, replaced by a neutral notation. Across the galaxy, threat assessments quietly revised themselves. No announcements followed. No accusations surfaced. Diplomats continued to speak of cooperation and shared futures. Earth did not contradict them. Ward deactivated the display and sat in the darkness, listening to the quiet. Humanity would continue to negotiate. To compromise. To wait. But now, the galaxy understood something it had missed before. When Earth stopped talking, it was already over.